It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Angela Golden all the way from Reno, Nevada. Since 2004, Angela has been helping dental practices improve their success and increase the value of their dental practice with her customizable consulting plans. With over 25 years of dental experience in both private practice and corporate dental offices, she understands the needs of your dental practice. Angela started her career in dentistry in 1992 in a small rural town in northern Nevada. Over the years, she has utilized her skills as a dental hygienist, dental assistant, office manager, insurance specialist, collection manager, and multi-practice regional manager. She has attained the ability to grasp new ideas and integrate them into desired results. Angela has implemented several pragmatic management systems into all aspects of dental practices. She is a dynamic, results-oriented problem solver and experienced in providing project management, consulting, and marketing services in the dental field. Angela is passionate about the links between oral health and systemic health. She enjoys teaching other healthcare professionals and community the importance of oral health and how oral health contributes to such a wide variety of systemic diseases. She's an affiliate of the American Association of Dental Consultants and an active member of the Speaking and Consulting Network, American Academy of Dental Office Managers, American Dental Hygiene Association, and served on the 2006 editorial advisory board for the Coding Institute's Strategies for Success in Dental Practice Management. In her spare time, Angela helps in fundraising efforts for the Northern Nevada Dental Hygiene Program, Adopt a Vet dental program, and oral cancer awareness, as well as spending time with her children and granddaughter. You don't look old enough to have a granddaughter. I got 4 grandkids. You got one too?
I have one, yeah. She's almost 2 years old.
You know what? A grandchild is your reward for not killing all 4 of your children when you knew you should have. That's why I was telling my oldest son when he made me little Taylor, I said, okay, now we're even. Uh, so we first met, gosh darn, in 2000 in the Caribbean in Grand Cayman. We were both listening to Linda Miles. So dentistry's it's really changed over the years. I mean, 30 years ago, I got out of school. My dental office in Phoenix turned 30 last September 11, 87. And I would submit a crown for $1,000 a Delta. They'd pay half. If I sent them a root canal filling, whatever my fee was, they paid 80%. Whatever my fee was for cleaning exams and x-rays, they paid 100%. Now they're sending me the fees, and I'm doing crowns and root canals and fillings for 42% less money than I did 3 decades ago. But every time the earth goes around the sun, the staff all want to raise. So how do you deal? What type of problems are you dealing with today in Reno?
Well, I'll tell you, Delta Dental is a huge problem for everybody, I think, especially now that they're not grandfathering in the dentists onto Delta Dental Premier as they used to. So all of the new associates are having to go to the PPO plan, and it's ridiculous, the fees that they pay, in my opinion. A lot of practices are steering away from Delta completely because of it. They just can't make money. They can't be profitable. The one way they can is by doing assisted hygiene, but that's not fair to the hygienists, as you know, as well as the patients. We can't provide the best quality care. So I think the dental insurance is not changed since I think 1970, and unless we all fight against it, we're not going to see a change. We can't let the insurance companies dictate what we do in dentistry.
But see, that's what Delta and calling them a nonprofit is what a joke. I mean, they do billions of dollars a year because Delta, Medicare, Medicaid, and in my opinion, I don't want to get political, but the entire Democratic Party, they've never wanted to help poor people. They want to control poor people. Like if you look at the trillions of dollars they spend on public housing, well, that's not how you manage people. When you put them in a government house, they break out all the windows and put graffiti on it. If they would have bought them each a trailer and put them in a trailer park where they own the trailer, they would have painted it, planted flowers. Delta, Medicare, Medicaid, they don't see them helping poor and subsidizing them. They want to control the fee. Like Delta, Medicare, Medicaid would have universal acceptance that said, hey, we'll pay $100 towards a filling. But if you go to Angela, she might charge 120. Howard might charge 150. Here's a list of all the dentists that'll do it for that fee, nothing out of pocket. But if you're a consumer who makes complex decisions, decides they don't want a low-cost Chevy, they want to pay more for a Pontiac or an Olds or a Cadillac, like cigarettes. All the poor people buy Marlboro at $10 a pack, and they could buy Lucky Stripes for $5. So Delta would say, oh no, you have to smoke Lucky Stripes. You're not capable of taking $5 subsidy and applying it to a pack of Marlboro at 10. I mean, they don't want to subsidize them and help them make complex decisions. They want to control them. And that's where dentists should draw the line. I thought California Medicare was, completely insane. They were shocked that so many dentists didn't take Medicare. So they barely raised the prices, just barely raised them, and got a whole bunch more people to sign up. They don't realize that if it was just a subsidy, everybody would sign up. And then they could have a list that says, so it's not about, they've never, ever, ever, ever been about helping poor people. They only want to control poor people. They want to own them, control them. But don't get me started on that. You're going to make me have a stroke right here on my own podcast.
Well, and you know what, Howard, the other thing about dental insurance is they don't look at the benefits of how dentistry is going to affect the rest of the body. So instead of preventing strokes and heart attacks and everything like that, they're not looking at the full picture. Dental insurances are only looking at what they want to look at. And you're right. It's not fair.
If Delta Dental owned smartphones, they'd force everyone to have a Samsung. Exactly. And if you were poor and said, well, can I take that and apply it to Angela's practice and upgrade it to an iPhone? They go, no, there will not be iPhones. We're Delta Dental, we're Medicare, we're Medicaid, we're smarter than you, you're a Neanderthal, you only get a Samsung. And then they think that's intelligent. But that's where the battle line needs to be. That's where the war needs to be. And now what Delta's doing, if you don't sign up for their PPO, then they send the money to the patient, knowing that so many of them are just going to cash it and never come back. So again, they're just... And
they claim bankruptcy, and then you don't get the money anyway.
Yeah, there needs to be a war, because if all the dentists work for Delta, then where do the patients go when they need a dentist? Exactly. I mean, when my granddaughter, if she got a disease, I want to take her to a doctor that looks at me and tells her what she needs. I don't want that doctor to be some employee of some HMO that withholds all these choices from me because they've already made the decision that me spending money on an iPhone and a house and car is more important than my granddaughter, when they don't realize I give my granddaughter both my kidneys, my liver, and every dime I've ever made. And I just can't stand it when other people make decisions on behalf of me because they think they're smarter than me.
Yep, I totally agree with you, 100%.
And that's where the battle line was with Obamacare. Mm-hmm. It was about massive regulation, control of price, instead of just helping poor people get into the innovative, free-for-service system that is so abundant in America.
And I wish that we had more fee-for-service dentists, but it's hard to get patients that way, and that's what I'm seeing that's why people are turning away Delta Dental patients, because they just can't make it a profit. Some of the insurance companies that I negotiated with Aetna, Cigna, I am seeing better results, but you can't negotiate with Delta.
They're monopolistic. They're monopolistic.
Exactly.
They're monopolistic. They're abusive, and one of these days they're gonna be pushed into a corner. I mean, it's an abusive system. But you used to also work for a DSO.
I did.
Which one did you work for?
Pacific Dental.
Oh, Stephen Thorne.
Yeah.
I always tell my homies all the time, they always want to buy a laser, a CAD cam, the CBCT. They want to learn how to place implants. The number one return on investment is always a practice management consultant. And a lot of these kids will work for a couple of years for Pacific or Heartland or Aspen. They said they didn't like it and they quit. And I said, yeah, but Stephen Thorne, I mean, he manages 500 offices. I mean, Rick Workman manages 800 offices. Surely you learned a massive amount of business. I mean, if that company can run 500, and most of my dental friends can't even run one, did you learn a lot of sophisticated management systems from a company that manages 500? Did you learn more new things to do or more things not to do? What was your journey like at Pacific?
Honestly, I learned more things not to do. Here in Reno, at the time, they were just building their practices up right now. Just a few years ago, they started with one, and I think they have 4 or 5 here now. In my opinion, I like to treat the patient, and I didn't feel like that was what we were doing. So I didn't feel like it was a good system.
What did you feel they were doing?
What was that?
What did you feel like they were just mainly trying to do?
Upselling everything.
Right.
And like I said, I'm not the kind of consultant that is big. I want to take care of our patients. That's my top priority. And so sometimes I feel like upselling, a lot of upselling, especially on scaling and root planings, that for patients who could get by on maybe doing a prophy with inflammation and then going forward, or a debridement and then, reevaluating. But that was one of the things I saw.
Yeah. I imagine. But one thing that I really respect about Pacific is when he started Pacific, he bought a practice management system where he owned the code, and then he hired his own programmers, and they've been programming on top of that layers and layers and layers for 20 years. What I respect most about Stephen Thorne is the guy knows his cost. I mean, he knows when somebody leaves and had a cleaning exam and X-ray, he knows if he made $3 or if he lost $3. And I feel that one of the biggest pitfalls of dentists is that their Dentrix and EagleSoft doesn't merge with their QuickBooks or their Peachtree, or Microsoft bought Great Plains Accounting. They're calling it Microsoft GP. So these dentists have a schizophrenic system, and every time I've ever seen a dentist walk out of an optometry and said, "Hey, you just did a hygiene exam. The lady just had a cleaning, bite wings, and exam. Did you make $7.14 after tax, or you lose $12?" He says, "I don't know, but I'm thinking about adding another hygienist." And it's like, dude, I could sit down and do the math with you and prove to you that by your 5th full-time hygienist, you'd declare bankruptcy. I mean, so that's why I think there's such a huge market of dental consultants. I mean, there's been a swath of dental consultants the whole 30 years, mainly because the management information system is so bad. I mean, if you compared it to the Hyatt Regency or Hertz Rent-A-Car, you would start crying.
Well, and talking about Dr. Stephen Thorne, he has the systems in place for every single detail, and that's where practices are lacking. A lot of the newer softwares that are coming out, like Dental Intel and Practice by Numbers, those kind of systems pull all the information from Dentrix, which helps the consultants tremendously. And I'm sorry, but it's so hard to pull reports from EagleSoft or Dentrix to see where your profitability is, because you have to print 15 different reports to find one answer.
Yeah. And then you hear the owner of Dentrix, Henry Schein, Stan Bergman. Next time he's doing a conference call to Wall Street, listen to him. Oh, profits, sales, net income, return on investment. I mean, it's like I'm sitting there wanting to scream on the call saying, "Hey, how come none of your customers can have any of those numbers?"
Right.
I mean, his entire conference call is completely impossible on his own practice. And in fact, to call Dentrix a management information system would be like calling me a Calvin Klein model. I mean, it's just completely insanity. Which is why, myself, I've been on SoftDent for 30 years. I just switched to Open Dental because of Jordan Sparks, that dentist in Oregon, where he had the same problem with Dentrix, but he was trying to extract all the patients' names and addresses so he could do a mailing card back when tooth bleaching was coming out. And he was a programmer, a little bit of a programmer himself, but he noticed not only could he not do that, but people actually spent time building firewalls to make sure that he couldn't. And then he called up Dentrix and they said, "Well, you can't do that. That's our data." He said, "My patients are your data?" And he
Really?
was so pissed off, he started Open Dental, and Open Dental is the only dental office software that doesn't advertise anywhere because they're
And they're
growing. They're growing.
becoming so popular. And it's nice that they have their own versions of everything on there. It's so easy to use that anybody can just walk in and start using that program. There's not all these hidden little places to post or places to put things. So,
Well, if someone was coming out of school, you're talking to a lot of kids right now. I mean, I always tell people, please send me an email to howard@dentaltown.com. Tell me who you are, what country you live in, how old you are. It's about 25% are still in dental kindergarten school, and the rest are all under 30. They're working in Aspen, they're working all this stuff. If she was getting ready to open up her own office, what practice management information system would you tell her to go with?
I actually am really liking Curve Dental right now. Don't have any practices on it yet, but I've done a couple demos with them, and they have everything put together really well. Like I said, I don't have any practices on it yet, but the second one I would say would definitely be Open Dental.
So, Curve Dental is out of Utah. In fact, it's up the street from Dentrix. Wasn't it started with ex-Dentrix employees?
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, if you look at where Dentrix was started in Provo, Utah, there's about 10 other companies now around them just doing everything that they should have done 30 years ago. I mean, they created an entire, they call it Silicon Valley for tech startups. Now they're calling it Silicon Slopes in Utah because it's a tech brands out there, and it's amazing how many companies in Utah wouldn't even exist if Dentrix did what we were begging them to do. I mean, I went down to Dentrix 12 times, not once, not twice, 12 times. And when you talk to them, I mean, it was like talking. I mean, I don't want to go there. I swear to God, I'll blow a stroke. But anyway, so why did you like Curve more than Open? Why was that your first go-to?
The charting made it really easy to. I like to demonstrate to a patient. You know, if you're going to be selling dentistry, you need the patients to understand it. Their dental charting was amazing. The periodontal charting was amazing. A visual for the patients to see the depths of the periodontal pockets, to see where the recession is. And then their analytics. They have the most amazing analytics that pulls up instantly on Curve. Instead of having to, go through so many reports, you can just click right on the analytics.
Now, is Curve on Twitter is @DentistSoftware. Now, they're cloud-based, aren't they?
Yeah.
Now, was that a deciding factor in your picking them first?
I actually do think that cloud-based is the way to go. I know SoftDent is going cloud-based. Dentrix has a Dentrix Enterprise that's cloud-based. I do think it's going to be the way of the future, and everybody needs to get up on it.
I'll retweet their last deal. It said, we shared the love with our customers this month by making a fun change to the Curve Dental login. Making everyday celebrations a part of your workday is why we're a better fit to the modern progress. And then they did, oh my God, what is the day today? To 12th? They have a Valentine's Day. This Valentine's Day, we'd like to tell our customers we love working with them. Okay, so I retweeted that, and I also retweeted your last tweet, and thank you so much for the 25,000 homies that follow me on Twitter. That is just amazing. Your last tweet, you are at Golden Opportunity, so it's at Golden Ops Reno. She's in Reno, Nevada. She's Golden Opportunities. And at Golden, so I just retweeted that to my homies. So, because they're driving to work right now, they're commuting, and I tell them not to text me or while they're driving. So explain to them why you like the cloud. Because what I don't understand is what I don't understand. You'll take a restaurant chain like McDonald's with 40,000 locations, and every damn location has a computer and software and servers, and they got to be installing updates and all this stuff. And you look at so many of these chains, do they not get that they could have a centralized IT department and all of those terminals could be cloud-based. And when people say, well, I don't like the cloud, well, when you get on Google, that's the cloud. When you get on Facebook, that's the cloud. LinkedIn, Pinterest, all your social media stuff's on the ad. It's not, all that stuff isn't in your iPhone. It's on the cloud. But why do you think it's slow to come to dentistry? Do you think there's actually a reason, or just they're too busy learning how to place implants?
I just think that generally the IT people, everybody, you have to have a server. You have to have the server to hold all your x-rays. You have to have, and that's what's been the belief to everybody. You have to have that server. Or that some doctors even believe that you can get hacked easier if you're all cloud-based, which, I don't know the statistics on that. I do know that we've had several dentists be hacked here in my Reno offices and in my Boise offices. I know several practices that have been hacked and with the ransomware and whatnot. And maybe, none of those offices were cloud-based. That was all through a server. So,
Well, I mean, it's exactly the opposite. I mean, if you're cloud-based, you have a department. You have IT people. You have people that have college degrees in this stuff, and they're on top of it 24 hours a day.
Exactly.
And then you have Dr. Cranston, who's in there Monday through Thursday, and then when his computer crashes, he finds out he was backing up his software to the D drive instead of the C drive, and he doesn't even have a backup. Yeah, my son got the ransomware on the laptop, and we basically had to throw away his laptop.
Oh, yeah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy.
If a dentist gets hacked, then you have to inform all of your patients that you've been hacked and their information was compromised, and nobody wants that for their practice. So I think going cloud-based with all of the different servers and different parts of the country, they're much better protected with that software than anything else.
Yeah. So Curve Dental. Well, okay, but I do know on the internet. I do know this. Two things I keep hearing dentists tell me about the internet. Number one, with these big CBCT files, loading them up on the cloud is, it's like downloading a movie. They're big files. So I have heard a lot of people like oral surgeons say, dude, I think it's CBCT on everyone. I can't do cloud. Also, cloud, internet phone systems, VoIP. Voice over Internet Protocol. What these dentists didn't realize, they thought, oh my God, my internet, it's reliable, it's never gone down in 10, 15 years. Yeah, that's because you haven't had it on your business phones.
Right.
And they were saying that when they have voice over Internet phone system calls, that the phones were going out, 5 minutes one time in the morning and 7 minutes in the afternoon, and it would just, they'd pull their hair out.
Yeah.
So so maybe it's bleeding edge right now. And at any minute, it could be leading edge. I know a lot of these voice over Internet Protocol phone companies are dumping tons of money into infrastructure to get that. And I know we have that issue at Dental Town where our internet service provider, it does go down for an hour or two every single month. So then the obvious thing is, well, we'll get another internet provider, so we'll have two. But to have all those T1 lines, it's so damn much money. It's like, do I want to spend several $1,000s extra a month out of my own back pocket just because I know it's going to go down for an hour every month, And then in Phoenix, you always got some yahoo on a tractor, and they're digging a cave, they're putting in they're digging something, and I'd say about every 6 months, some guy with a backhoe takes out the whole damn cable. That is a nightmare, but anyway.
Oh yeah.
So who's calling you now? Are you mostly consulting in Reno, or are you going all around? You go anywhere, or what's your territory?
Well, I like to stay closer to Reno and Boise. My kids all live up in Idaho. That's where I started my business up in Idaho. So I still have clients up there, and I don't like to fly very much, but I will do it.
How come you don't like to fly?
Oh, well, I was in a plane crash when I was 16.
Small plane or a big one?
It was a big plane.
Wow. So. Tell me about that. What happened?
We were flying to Italy, and was my first time on a plane, my first time ever, and my flight from Reno to San Francisco went great, and then San Francisco to Milan was our next stop, and our hydraulic systems went out, so we flew around Chicago area and crash landed at Chicago O'Hare, and all I remember is blue foam everywhere, and it was the most scariest thing in my life.
Wow, that is crazy. So are you a big potato eater, since J.R. Simplot was born in Idaho, and he was he's the 89th richest man in the world when he died. He had $3.6 billion in cash and lived to the age of 99 when he was the oldest billionaire on Forbes 400. You know what my favorite joke in the world is? Came from J.R. Simplot, and it wasn't a joke. I mean, they always tell you, if you want to get a bill passed, you have to hand a wad of bills to some corrupt politician. And they asked J.R. Simplot, they said, well, have you ever thought about politics, like being the governor of Idaho or a senator from Idaho? And he says, why? I already own them all.
That's so true.
And
his children were actually patients of mine.
Really?
Yeah.
That man was he was just a genius. Do you know his story with McDonald's?
I've heard it a few times. He does have all of the French fries from McDonald's are made by J.R.
What it was is when they opened the McDonald's, when they started in Downey, California. The first 10, they were all in Phoenix and down there in that dry, arid deal. And and when the guy from who took Ray Kroc, who's the one who took it from a regional player of 10 stores to rolling it out as a franchise, as they were rolling it out, the French fries didn't taste the same. And he thought the McDonald's brothers were holding something back, or they couldn't figure it out. But everyone wanted to know why they were greasy and soggy in Indiana and Illinois, but they were that crunchy, dry, tasty, salty in Southern Cal. And it was J.R. Simplot. He said, dude, it's the conditions of the air. You're moving these potatoes to these wet, humid places. So what he did, the most genius thing he did, and one idea made him a billionaire, he said, when we pull out those potatoes, we're just going to blanch deep fry them. We're gonna cut them, dress them, and just fry them in the 350 oil. He said I wanted the oil to where if you sprinkle water in there, the water pops out. And he said, we're just going to deep fry them for just 10 seconds, and that will lock everything in, and then we'll put them in a bag, and we'll freeze them. And he invented frozen French fries, and they were perfect. And that's why McDonald's has a consistent French fry around the world, because they're all made in one place. And just an amazing man. I mean, that guy was a freak genius. So what problems are you... So you mostly work in Idaho and Nevada.
Uh-huh.
And why are clients calling you? What are their problems? How are you solving them? What are you seeing in the field these days? What problems you see? What problems are you solving?
Well, it depends on the practices. Most of the practice Reno and Boise are kind of the smaller towns. I have some more rural areas that don't even have airports. But a lot of the problems I'm finding are that there's just not enough training for dental practices. They don't have the training that they really understand, treatment planning. They don't understand the solutions that we can offer to our patients, not only through just, working on dentistry, but I really like to focus my patients on the oral systemic link, especially with, sleep apnea. There's so many things out there now that dentistry we're taking all of that into effect when we open somebody's, looking into somebody's mouth. We also have to do, remember to do the oral cancer screenings, checking the x-rays. There's so many practices that I've seen now that don't do a perio charting once a year, or they don't take x-rays once a year, or even every 24 months. So I think it's just, building the systems back into dentistry like we used to have, there's systems for everything, and really trying to link. I mean, when I go into a practice, one of the things I do is spend, a day just learning what they're doing in the practice. And sometimes I go in and they're not taking blood pressures. They're not looking at the patient as a whole body, I'm very, very passionate about that, and treating the patients, making sure that we're giving them the information about periodontal disease and heart disease and diabetes. In dental hygiene school, I became very, very passionate about the oral systemic link because my patients were my family, of course, and my grandmother had a heart attack while I was in hygiene school. My uncle was very diabetic, ended up losing all of his teeth. He was my edentulous patient, and I became very passionate about that. And so I did more research and found that we can detect the carotid artery on a Panorex, and how much of what we do in dentistry can, help treat other patients with diabetes, heart disease. And that's something that I really want to focus on when I go into practices, is helping them build their practice to the next level by treating the entire patient, not just the mouth.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, we have, there's still a lot of dentists who think correlation versus cause effect. Like, my coffee pot didn't turn on because the sun come up. That's a correlation, not a cause effect. My favorite chart, and I just posted it yesterday, was if you plot the number of IKEA stores in a country and number of Nobel Prizes won, it's a perfect line. And so if a country wants to have more Nobel Prizes, they should open up more IKEA stores. But, the data, I don't believe it's correlation anymore. I believe it's cause effect. I mean, they got great research that women with gum disease have 3 times the rate of breast cancer. It's an inflammatory disease. But I think where the money, in America, they always talk about truth, liberty, and justice, but it's really money's the answer, what's the question? And the most expensive thing these health insurance companies have is a premature baby. And when you drop a frog at 1 pound, it's $1 million. And they know that the number one preventable thing they could do is, when they got any of these pregnant girls on their plan, the minute they're pregnant, they want them to have cleaning. And if they could knock out the gingivitis and the because when the body's inflamed, something's doing something to say, maybe this isn't a good time. I'll give you another example of that, where it took them 30 years to figure out, but everybody knew what was happening. Do you remember when girls reached menarche? The age kept going lower and lower and lower, and it finally got to where in the United States and France, 10% of girls were reaching menarche at age 10, and they just knew it was all the hormones and the milk and the beef and all that. So America didn't do anything because America is owned by lobbyists and they didn't want it. But France actually did the right thing and banned all the hormonals in their food because they knew that was from, and it continued to drop and drop and drop regardless. And finally, it was an evolutionary biologist said, well, you're just looking at these 20 rich countries. Let's look at all the countries. So he started looking at all the countries and said, is menarche rising anywhere? And they found out, yeah, in Ethiopia, in Somalia, in Eritrea, it was actually going up. And then they immediately realized, evolutionary biology, that if a woman has a really rich, amazing diet, that would be the best time to get fertile and drop an egg and make a baby. And the reverse of that is true. If your mouth has gum disease and inflammation, and the body thinks, maybe this isn't a good time to grow a frog, let's not do this, this isn't a good time. But there's something in there. And I listened to the past executive director of the American Dental Association for like 10 years, way back in the day. I think it was in the 80s. I think his name was Brennan. And I mean, he showed a whole presentation for a day on this link between gingivitis and low weight term babies. So I think that's going to be a big deal. But when you're talking about staff training, I mean, there's another way to look at that. I mean, not only are the staff all undertrained, not only do all staff and dentists need continuing training all day, every day. I mean, I always say every day humans need to brush, floss, take a bath, get motivation, get new information. I mean, they're humans. That's how you manage humans. You can't. It's like the Christmas bonus once a year doesn't motivate your staff in July. I mean, your staff pays their bills monthly. So if you pay your rent, car payment, house payment, phone payment monthly, the only bonus that's going to make them think in that month is the bonus they get that month. They're not thinking about the end of the year. And but the biggest problem in dentistry is it's the staff turnover.
Yeah.
I mean, you go into these offices where
huge.
when everybody only works there 2 to 3 years, you can't really get any traction.
No, that's a huge problem in all over the country. I believe that the job hunters, they find a dentist and they work there for a year and then they jump over because they're going to get $1 an hour raise, or I have a bonus system in my practices that I put into place that it's based on each individual person's accountability and what they do in their actual position. So the assistants get bonused on the, how much treatment they're doing in a day, and the hygienists get bonused on how much treatment and, diagnosing, helping the dentist diagnose treatment with intraoral cameras and, sharing in the responsibility of the practice. So it's not just the dentist being, held accountable for everything. That's not fair to dentists. I believe that everybody in the office needs to be held accountable for each of their positions. And the only way they can do that is by being trained properly. I have a little, of course, my business name is Golden Opportunities, and so for my bonus system is called Golden Opportunities Accountability Levels, and that's where I go in and we really evaluate how well, treatment coordination is going, how well the hygiene scheduling is going, how well, follow-up calls made, what I call, treatment auditing, because everybody needs to be held liable for that. Otherwise, your practice is going to just go down the tubes. And like you said in your book, Howard, the quote, I think it was, you have to create opportunities in your practices with your staff. By helping the patients, you're going to create more opportunities with your staff, and that's going to just be flourish for everybody, so that there isn't that much staff turnover, so that the staff is really held accountable and likes to come to work because they're helping people.
Well said. So your territory is mainly Idaho and Nevada, just those two states? Yeah. And how many?
I'll go to Utah also.
You'll go to Utah. So how many dentists are in Idaho or Nevada or Utah? Do you know the numbers on those three states?
There is close to 550 here in Nevada, or northern Nevada, I should say. There is 820 something in Idaho, and that was my last year's count. So I don't think that includes Las Vegas.
And how many in Utah?
Close to 1,000 in Las Vegas.
Okay, and how many in Utah?
There's probably 1,500, I would say.
And so if some kid was coming out and they were thinking about going to Utah, Idaho, Nevada, my question is, do demographics matter? Do small town rural dentists in those three states do better than the big town dentists in Reno, Vegas, and Salt Lake City?
Yes.
Yeah.
I totally 100% believe that rural dentists do better.
Yeah.
That, like I said, I have several practices that are in rural Nevada. They're mining towns where, in rural cities or towns, I guess you would say, they don't have to contract with every dental insurance company out there to get patients, which is a huge benefit. So there's more fee-for-service in rural areas because there's not as many dentists in those areas. So let's say one of my towns, let's say Elko, there's maybe 20 dentists in all of Elko, but there's a population of over 35,000 people. And they're not...
Where's that, Idaho or Nevada?
That's in Nevada.
And what are they mining?
Gold.
What?
Gold mines.
Well, that's your name. So you're just being biased because you're golden and you love gold. I would raise my daughter in Nevada, but I'd never raise a daughter in Idaho.
No, I know that joke.
I don't want her whole life saying, "Where are you from?" And she says, "Idaho." It's like, but anyway, bad joke. But anyway, but yeah, and and I'll tell you, right here, I'm in Phoenix. I mean, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, but everybody in this area, if you say where are you from, they say Ahwatukee, because that's just the way it is. But I have friends that commute 40 minutes in the morning north to Scottsdale and are beat up all day long. And then I have other friends who are more lazy who commute 40 miles out of town
Mm-hmm.
and go to Maricopa and Eloy and just clean up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like most dentists wake up in the morning at a 1 person per 2,000 patient ratio, and then they drive an hour and get out of their car when it's one dentist for 500. But if they would have drove the other way, they could have driven to a place that's 1 out of 3,500 or 1 out of 6,000. In fact, I'll tell you this: when you drive from Phoenix to LA, the border town is Blythe, right?
Right.
They don't have a dentist.
No.
So you could work Monday through Thursday 4 10-hour days. It'd be like shooting fish out of a barrel, and probably be so damn rich you could have a condo on the ocean in L.A. and one in Scottsdale, and every other week drive and spend Friday, Saturday, Sunday like a rock star in one of those 3 places. And I know dentists that do that. I know dentists in Bakersfield who makes so damn much money. He works 4 10s Monday, Thursday, then gets in his own private airplane and flies to Orange County and then hangs out there for 3 days. And I mean, but everybody in Newport Beach you say, well, you want to practice in Bakersfield? They'd say, I'd rather go to hell. And then you try to tell them that Bakersfield is hell. So, it is hell. Don't say I'd rather go to hell. Bakersfield is hell. What's that?
Rural areas that's where people work. So there's still people that live there. I know, let's say Hamilton, Montana, it's a beautiful country, beautiful places to hunt and fish and do that kind of thing, but there's very few dentists. In northern Idaho's the same way. Coeur d'Alene's a beautiful place, but, there's some places that you just can't draw a dentist to, and I don't understand that.
Coeur d'Alene is the worst Ironman course in the world, though.
Yes.
I've done Ironman 3 times, but the bike is the longest part. It's 112 miles. But in Coeur d'Alene, that's just straight up and down mountains the whole way.
Did you go up the Sandpoint on that also?
Oh my God! You don't ever want to do a bicycling trip in Idaho unless it's called a Harley Davidson. And then there's another thing I don't understand where these kids, they come out of school. A lot of them are in love with one of their classmates, and they're going to have a couple babies, but they still want to go to downtown Salt Lake or Phoenix or whatever. And it's like, well, why don't you just go rural for 5 years, make your babies? You really don't need to. If you want a big city baby, well, that doesn't start till they're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then you could sell that $1 million practice to someone. You could build it up and sell it. But anyway.
It's funny because I actually have one of my practices listed on Dental Town for sale that's in rural Nevada. And everybody that I've had contact, this is a majorly very profitable practice, fee-for-service, and beautiful office. But everybody's like, oh, no, I don't want to live way up there. There's, a 2-hour drive to go shopping. Well, yeah, there it is. But I'm okay with it.
And you just said the most amazing thing you just said is that no matter where you are in America, every consultant says if you're 2 hours away from a major airport, you're going to crush it. I mean, that's about how far you have to get away. And then the other thing that people don't realize is that 2-hour drive is about to be dead, because I'm here in Phoenix where Google started their driverless car program called Waymo. And so for all year, I've been seeing all these Waymo cars driving around. So once it's a driverless car, you're not going to pay $30,000-$50,000 for this fancy Honda Accord and all these bells and whistles, because you're not going to be driving it. It's going to be like a box on wheels, and you and the wife can go in there. You might just have a bed and a big screen and say, we're going to go watch a movie on our 2-hour commute to town. Or after work, you're tired and you're 2 hours away from town, and you get in your bed, you fall asleep, you wake up 2 hours later, ding, 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 you are now here in the big city. So once cars go driverless, I don't think anybody's going to care about the commute. It's the same way with me on an international flight. It's like people say, dude, how do you lecture in India and Vietnam and Cambodia? I mean, these are 15-hour flights. Well, if you're in first class, I consider first class if the thing lays completely flat like a bed. Well, if you're laying down completely flat in a bed, you don't know you're in an aluminum tube going 550 miles an hour across the ocean. I mean, you go to bed and you wake up and you're 4,000 miles further than when you went to sleep. So I think the whole commute thing is, and I also think of this. Here's my big prediction. You can't get any work done at home. because all your kids are saying, Dad, 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 Dad. You can't get any work done at work because you're sitting in a cubicle and everybody's come by and telling you what they did last night and they're moving, how's the wife. But you have to be there for the meetings. So I think what's going to happen, these commutes are going to be great. You're going to leave your house, kiss the kids goodbye, get in a box, do all your email for a 2-hour driverless commute to work, then get out, do all the meetings you have to do, find out what needs to be done, and then get back in your car uninterrupted, do your work 2 hours back home, and I think everyone's going to be a lot happier. I mean, I feel so sorry for people in cubicles where they do everything so you can't bother them. They say, put a sign, please don't disturb. They put on headphones. They do everything to go away, and you see some guy tapping on his shoulder. Oh, dude, you got to go see that movie, Black Panther. It was awesome. I saw it with my dog and it's like, anyway. So demographics matter. If you don't think demographics matter, what I suggest you do is graduate from dental school, go set up your practice in Syria, Afghanistan, or Somalia. And then after, 6 months or a year, you might start thinking maybe demographics do matter. So how do you slow down staff turnover?
Whew. Well, you know what? Treating your staff like they're your family. I mean, you're with them. Most dentists are with their staff more than with their own wife and kids. And I feel like treating your staff really, really well and giving them rewards and letting them know that they're appreciated is going to be a huge deal. Making them be a part of you and a part of your dream and a part of your team, you have to bring them into your whole life. And that's, some of the most successful practices that I've ever had actually do their dental meetings at the doctor's home, because that's where they, get to know each other and are more relaxed, and going out and doing things, having a cocktail after work with your staff or something, making them feel appreciated.
A cocktail? I thought you were in Idaho, Nevada, and Utah. That's Mormon country. You've never seen a cocktail before.
Oh, yeah.
So what? But the problem is that you're hardwired at birth that you're going to survive. All you want to do is survive long enough to reproduce, and to survive, you need to control your environment. So a lot of these dentists are very controlling, and it's just anti-biology to delegate. How do you see that a lot, or do you work with that?
Oh, yes. That's one of the things. Dentists and hygienists are very, very OCD. And so letting go of reins and, delegating something to somebody else is kind of out of our norm. We don't like to do that. And so I try to get the dentist to understand if they do let go of the reins a little bit, they're going to be a lot more profitable because they'll have more time to do what they like to do. Dentists come to work, they are in the patient's mouth all day long. They, like you've wrote about many times, their high suicide rates, the stress that they're under, and then having a business on top of it to run is a whole nother stress level. I can't even imagine how some dentists that don't delegate things can even handle it. That's probably why they have such a high suicide rate. But I just feel like I have to train the doctors as well. You have to kind of conform them to letting go of the reins and saying, yes, you can trust me to help you. A lot of some dentists have, let their staff take over everything. And those are the ones that I see that they are not checking their day sheets. They're not checking there's no systems in place to, check embezzlement. And that's a huge problem in dentistry right now is there's so many dentists being embezzled. And, I just don't know how Mr. Harris handles all the embezzlement that he has on his plate.
Yeah, and it's not just that. It's spouses up there embezzling. It's like you're a woman dentist, your husband's up front, and he's done, but then he starts thinking, well, hell, I could sell $5,000 a month, and you wouldn't even know it. Another thing is when there's two family members in there, so your assistant wants to hire her sister to work up front. Now you have two, so now you have two cats from a different tribe. I mean, there's so much that going on, and I have to tell you that 30 years ago, when everything was paper, check, pegboard, there wasn't that many ways to embezzle.
No, exactly.
But today, with everything digital and paperless, credit card terminals, I mean, they invent a new way to steal, and every single day. In fact, some of these ops managers are so good at it, they should seriously think about politics.
Yeah,
And, because they're such master stealers. So here's another thing that I see all the time. You go into a medical dental building, there's 4 dentists, and 3 of them, 3 people come in with a cavity. They have about a 1/3 treatment plan acceptance. And then there's that one office, 3 people come in a cavity, 2 people get the cavity done. And the difference between a 1/3 treatment plan acceptance rate is your average $750,000 office where they're taking home $175,000 a year. But when you get 2 out of 3 people to say, yeah, I need to get my cavity done, now you're at a $1.5 million office and you're taking home $300,000 a year. What do you think the key is between having a 1/3 treatment plan acceptance rate versus a 2/3? And I guarantee you, 1/3 aren't going to get done. I mean, some of my favorite patients come to the office in a wheelchair with an oxygen tube in their nose, and they're out smoking by my front door. I mean, I love them. I mean, there's diabetics in my practice that drink a 2-liter bottle of pop every single day. I mean, people are people. I'll never forget the first patient I ever saw that had a trach from oral cancer, Truman Medical Center East. I was in there with Brett Ferguson, Charlie White. Walked in there. Someone in her family snuck her up cigarettes, and she was in there smoking through her trachea. Mm-hmm. And I said, God dang, I love people. Because the Farran families, I mean, we're all from Wichita, Parsons, Kansas, Nevada, Missouri. I mean, we're born in a barn type people. I get it. But how do you get... So I get that 1 out of 3 aren't ever going to make a great decision about almost anything. But how do you go from 1 out of 3, that's the low-hanging fruit, says, oh, you're a dentist, you say I got a cavity, hey, I should probably get that done.
Right.
But how do you get that middle third? How do you get that one in the middle to go with you instead of going home?
You know what? I think it's all in the way you treat your patients. It's, some of my practices have paraffin hand wax. Some of them have, neck pillows or little massage rollers. And making the experience unbelievable for the patient is going to build trust for your patient. If they trust you, they're going to probably get their dental work done because they do trust you. And I think that going that extra mile and giving the patient, making them feel like a human, not just walking in there, open your mouth, you have a cavity and walk out. Explain it to them. I can do it, this cavity here, you have this cavity, and show them a picture of it. Show them what it looks like in their mouth. Treat them like a human being. They're not, that's the number one way to win patients over is by treating them like a human being. And I think that's a lot of times we forget, that our patients are humans and they're people and they have feelings and they just want to feel pampered and cared for. And they want to know that somebody is actually listening to them.
Yeah, and there was a big study, a big medical malpractice company wanted to know why it was always the same doctors getting sued over and over and over. So they were trying to prove that maybe they went to a bad school or they didn't have enough continuing education or, And what they found out that the only thing different with them is they were assholes. Their patients didn't like them. And and I also think it's very weird how in these smaller offices, the dentist will numb up the patient, and then he'll leave the room and he'll go sit in his office for 10 minutes doing, and it's like, God dang, that was the only time that mattered. Hey, how's the dog, Angela? How's the kid? Tell me how old's that granddaughter? Blah, blah, I mean, that's the only point that matters, and they leave the room. And when I know that my receptionist is mad at me because I, added an extra filling or ran overtime or whatever, and I know she's ready to slap me, I always dismiss the patient and walk up there and just say, how are you, Valerie? And she's like, actually, Angela's pretty pissed. She had an appointment at 10 o'clock. Howie, what time is it? It's 10:20. Why are you 20 minutes late for Angela? And then I own it. Yeah. And I'm out there. Angela, I'm so sorry, and whatever. But that's the only stuff that matters.
Exactly.
And the doctors think if they got an A in calculus, that everybody will honor them and always be their patient.
They don't care. Patients don't even know what school you went to most of the time, or they don't know anything. They just know you're a dentist or you're a hygienist, and they don't know even what you're supposed to be doing. They just want to be taken care of. And I know when I go to the doctor, if or the dentist for that matter, if I went to a practice and the doctor didn't actually talk to me and find out my concerns, and that would really bother me. I feel like they should treat me as a human being too. So
Yeah, and another thing I want the young kids to know is when they get out of school, they're always going to hear all these shocking stories about how bad this other dentist was, and a lot of them are going to believe it. But I'll give you some instances. Like, I've been a dentist for 30 years. You know how many times people have told me, he had to put his knee on my chest.
yeah.
Okay, well, I've never met one dentist ever on earth that ever lived in this life or the one before that put their knee on a chest. And how many patients have told me that in 30 years? 100? So when they tell you all this batshit crazy stuff, don't side with the crazy person when the other person is a doctor of dental surgery. You got to get accepted into college, dental school, start a business. I mean, I'm banking the other dentist is probably 10 times more normal than this crazy person with crazy eyes telling you this crazy story. And I love humans. I mean, I would not have wanted to be born on Earth, the only human on Earth. That'd have been extremely weird and confusing. And so the humans are what makes it all great, but they're the source of all the stress, trouble. Sounds like you're at work and need to go. Is that your doc?
Mine?
Yeah, is that the dentist that just walked by?
Oh yeah, he just walked by. He just waved to me.
Oh, well, you should have brought him on the show.
Yeah, I should have.
So for a close, how much do you cost? How do they find out more information? Your website is Golden
ODC
Opportunities Dental Consulting.
Yeah.
Your email's info@Golden ODC. So so basically, you prefer to work in Nevada, Idaho, Utah. What do you charge? Is it a contract? Is it a daily rate, a monthly rate? How's it work?
You know what? I base it all on what I don't have a set fee. I base everything on what the needs of are the practice. In the practice, for instance, if I'm doing a practice startup or if I'm just training, so everything is based on what you actually need. I don't do a lot of the year contracts, things like a lot of consultants do. I'm very one-on-one with my clients.
So you have no contracts?
I do not have contracts.
But I bet you didn't say that to your husband, Mr. Golden. I bet you made him sign a contract.
I did, no.
you make everybody not sign a contract. Okay. Well, but so the fee, it just depends.
It just depends on, honestly, on how much time I'm going to be spending in the practice or with the practice. That will be based on how I do my fees.
Well, here's the most common question that everyone asks me from dental kindergarten. Howard, what implant system do you recommend? And I say, you know what the better question is? Have you ever been audited or inspected by the State Board of OSHA? Do you know what your true total account receivables is? How many accounts have credit balances? Do you know why? Does your scheduling coordinator know how to effectively communicate with patients to schedule needed treatment? Do you know how many active patients you have? How many active patients are falling through the cracks? Do you have a written hygiene policy or perio program? Do you have only one person in charge of all financial aspects of the practice? Do you have a compliance coordinator in your practice? When did you last perform an audit of all systems in your practices? And you know what? Your bone cell, your osteocyte, it doesn't give a shit if that titanium implant was made by Noble Biocare or Strawman or Implants Direct. It came out of some mine in Utah, right?
Well, and it's so funny that you bring up the auditing. As you saw I think I actually saw it on, you posted it about the dentist in UNLV who was reusing abutments.
Right.
I don't know how many times I've gone through practice audits with the state of Nevada or OSHA, or even insurance companies do audits. That I'm doing one next week with an insurance company. There's so many things to be looking at in your practice that dentists don't really know until they get, the phone call or OSHA walks in the door, or they get a letter in the mail saying, hey, we're coming into your practice and we're going to look at everything. And that's where dentists really need to know.
And some of it is just oversight. Like, there was a good old boy in Oklahoma who just didn't know that his autoclave had died. but they just kept using it. And then, back in the day when I was little and got out of school, the Centers for Disease Control, they were aware of clusters. And they could go there with hand and pencil and figure out that everybody in this cluster ate at this restaurant, or the number one thing in common is they went to this dentist. But now they can take that infection and go through the DNA and sequence it and say, oh, you caught this from Howard, not Tom. And the ramification, I mean, it's like a criminal deal. I mean, there's so many hats to wear that the dentists have to delegate. They have to slow down the staff turnover. And my final note is nobody ever got a gold medal in the Olympics who didn't have a coach. And you look at these gold medalists now, they got their sport coach, they got a nutrition coach, they got a therapist, they got a personal trainer, they got a sports psychologist so they keep their head in the game. I've always thought the best dental consultants in the world were part armchair psychologists trying to get this dentist, trying to get their head back in the game. You know what I mean? If you're burned out, fried, and your mind's not in it. So these guys that get a gold medalist, they might have 5 to 10 coaches. And then the dentist thinks, well, I'm a doctor. I mean, obviously I know everything. How could anybody know anything more than me if I'm a doctor? And kids, I'm going to tell you 1,000 times. By the time you get to my age, every practice doing 2, 3, 4, 5 million didn't use one consultant. They used a half dozen consultants over 30 years. And if you think a laser or a CAD cam or learning how to place implants is more important than calling Angela, you're just going to learn a lot of shit the hard way, and it's going to cost you a ton of money.
And Howard, I really appreciate you saying that. There are so many great consultants out there, and even I learn every day from different consultants, and I don't have a coach. I use you guys. I have your book here that I read. I have all kinds of books from, David Moffat, Linda Miles, Lois Banta. They are all wonderful people, and we all need to, learn from each other. Not one person has every solution. And that's where I think, I'm lucky that I have had the experiences of being in every position except for the dentist. So I do understand and relate to the staff. And that has helped me in consulting drastically because the staff really relates to us. So.
And one last thing, I'll never forget it. This happened to me several times in my life where in my journey in the 80s and early 90s, one of my friends with like the most perfect practice in the world. One was Jerome Smith in Lafayette, Louisiana. One was, what was that guy's name in Wichita? What was his name? Anyway, and I said, why would you get a consultant? I said, you have a perfect practice. He goes, buddy, that's why I have a consultant. I've never given a consultant $1 where I didn't get that dollar back twice in that single calendar year. And what you're seeing is Landry. Was it Landry in Wichita? Yeah, Dr. Landry. Your sister-in-law, Joyce, used to work for him. And he says, what you're seeing is 20, 30 years of a consultant fixing up the hygiene department, a consultant fixing up this, or sales, or this, or marketing, or website. He says, we've been doing that. He says, if there's one person that thinks they can come in here and just tweak it a little better, I'm buying her right now. And it was, So thank you for all that you do for dentistry. Thank you so much for giving me an hour of your life coming on the show today. And how old's your granddaughter?
2.
Is that your only one?
Yeah.
Then I bet that's one lucky, spoiled, rotten granddaughter.
Oh, I love it.
I know it. I hope you have a rockin' hot day, Angela. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much, Howard. I appreciate it.